The Albino Dragon. Part 1. The Last Stand. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ruins of what was once Seoul. Broken buildings stretched toward the sky like broken teeth, their windows dark and empty. In the distance, smoke still rose, from fires that had burned for weeks. This was Earth now, 30 years after the aliens came. Dong-Su stood on the wooden watchtower, his weathered hands gripping the rail. At 62, he was one of the oldest survivors in Sanctuary Valley. His gray hair moved in the wind as he watched the horizon for any sign of danger. Below him, the last human village carried on with another day of simple survival. 200. People called this hidden valley home. They had built their houses from salvaged metal and wood, creating a small town tucked between two large hills. Gardens grew where they could find good soil. Children played in the dusty streets, their laughter, the only sound that still felt normal in this broken world. Hyejin climbed the ladder to join Dong-Su on the watchtower. She was 35 and strong, with calloused hands from years of fighting and building. A rifle hung across her back and a knife sat at her side. She never went anywhere without weapons anymore. "Any movement out there?" she asked, looking toward the mountain pass. "Nothing yet," Dong-Su replied. "But that doesn't mean we're safe. The Kethrans are still hunting us." The Kethrans had come from the stars 30 years ago. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They said they needed Earth's water and minerals. Humans, they decided, were just animals in the way. Most cities fell in the first week. Most countries surrendered in the first month. Those who fought back were hunted down and killed. Hyejin nodded and checked her rifle. She had been fighting the aliens since she was 15 years old. Her parents died in the first attacks on Busan. She learned to shoot, to hide, and to run. Now she taught others how to stay alive. "Have you seen Taiho this morning?" Dong-Su asked. "He's at the north wall again," Hyejin said. "Just standing there, staring at the mountains. Sunja says he barely slept last night. Taiho was the village's greatest mystery. He had arrived 12 years ago as a child, found wandering alone in the wasteland. He couldn't remember where he came from or who his parents were. What made him strange was not just his lost memories, but his appearance. Taiho had pale white, skin that seemed to glow in sunlight. His hair was silver white like an old man's, but he was only 24 years old. His eyes were a light blue that sometimes seemed to shine with their own light. The children called him the Albino Dragon, because of his strange looks and the way he protected them. Sunja, the village healer, said Taiho was just different, not dangerous. She was 50 years old and had been a doctor before the war. She found him when he was 12, half dead from hunger and cold. She nursed him back to health and watched him grow up in the village. But some people feared him. His strength was not normal. He could lift heavy stones that took 3 men to move. His reflexes were faster than anyone they had ever seen. Sometimes when he was angry or scared, his eyes would glow brighter, and the air around him would feel electric. Wubin, the village engineer, had seen Taiho bend metal bars with his bare hands. Boram, who studied old books and technology, noticed that electronic devices sometimes acted strangely around him. But both men trusted him because he had saved their lives more than once. The valley had been safe for 3 years now. The Kethrans had stopped searching this area, thinking all humans here were dead. The village had grown comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. That comfort ended when Minho came running into the town square, shouting and pointing toward the eastern hills. "Ships! I saw ships coming over the mountains." Minho was only 12 years old, but he had sharp eyes and was training to be a scout. People gathered around him, their faces showing fear they had tried to forget. "How many ships?" Hyejin asked, running from the watchtower. 3 small ones, Minho said, breathing hard. They were flying low, like they were looking for something. Dong-Su felt his stomach drop. Kethran scout ships meant only one thing. They had been found. "Everyone to positions," he shouted. "Children to the shelters. Adults, grab your weapons." The village moved with practiced speed. They had drilled for this day many times, hoping it would never come. Yoonji, who taught the children, led them to underground shelters dug into the hillside. Jae-won, the village's spiritual leader, helped the elderly and sick find safe places to hide. Yunseo, who was gentle and kind, organized the women who would tend to any wounded. She had lost her husband and son to the Kethrans 5 years ago, but she never let hatred make her cruel. The men and women who could fight took positions behind walls and barriers. They had only basic weapons, rifles, shotguns, and some handmade explosives. Against Kethran technology, these felt like stones thrown at tanks. Taeho appeared suddenly beside Hae-jin, moving so quietly that she jumped. "They're almost here," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were starting to glow. "How many Kethrans?" she asked. 12 total. 4 in each ship. They have scanning equipment. Hae-jin looked at him strangely. "How do you know that?" Taeho paused, as if the question confused him. I'm not sure. I just know." The sound of alien engines grew louder. 3 sleek ships appeared over the eastern hills, their hulls a dark green color that seemed to absorb light. They moved without the noise human aircraft made, gliding like deadly birds. The ships spread out, scanning the valley with beams of blue light. When the light touched the village, alarms began sounding from the alien craft. "They found us," Dongsu said quietly. The first ship landed in the town square. A door opened with a hiss and 4 Kethrans stepped out. They were 7 feet tall, wearing armor that looked like liquid metal. In their hands they carried weapons that hummed with energy. The lead Kethran spoke in their clicking language, then switched to broken human words. "Humans, you will surrender. You will be processed." Processed was the Kethran word for killed. Hae-jin raised her rifle, but before she could fire, Taeho stepped forward. "No," he said simply. The Kethrans looked at him with their large black eyes. The leader tilted his head, studying Taeho's pale appearance. "Interesting," the alien said. "You are not normal human." "Leave this place," Taeho said. His eyes were glowing brighter now, and the air around him began to shimmer with heat. The Kethran leader raised his weapon, but Taeho moved faster than human eyes could follow. Energy exploded from his hands, bright white light that struck the alien and threw him backward into his ship. The other 3 Kethrans opened fire, but their energy beams seemed to bend around Taeho. He raised both hands and more energy poured out. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The remaining Kethrans screamed as the flames consumed them. The other 2 ships began to lift off, but Taeho looked up at them with eyes like burning stars. He raised his arms toward the sky, and bolts of white lightning leaped from his fingers. Both ships exploded, raining debris across the valley. In 30 seconds, 12 Kethran soldiers and their ships were destroyed. Taeho lowered his arms, and his eyes returned to normal blue. He looked around at the villagers, who stared at him, in shock and fear. Even Sunja, who had always defended him, took a step backward. "I'm sorry," Taeho said quietly. "I didn't want you to see that." He walked away toward the hills, leaving the village in stunned silence. They were safe, but now they knew their protector was something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. In the distance, smoke rose from the wreckage, carrying their secret toward the sky. High above Earth's atmosphere, the massive Kethran mothership hung like a dark moon. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Inside the command center, red lights flashed as urgent reports came in from the surface. "Commander." Veltai stood 8 feet tall, his gray skin marked with the ritual scars of a war leader. His black eyes studied the data streaming across the holographic displays. 3 scout ships had been destroyed in less than 1 minute. The energy readings made no sense. "Show me the final transmission again," he ordered his communications officer. The hologram flickered, showing the last few seconds from the lead scout's recorder. A pale human male stepped forward, his eyes beginning to glow. Then came the explosion of white energy that ended the recording. Veltai's breathing tubes flared with excitement. He had seen this energy signature before, many years ago. "Contact the Science Division," he commanded. "Tell them we have found Project Chimera." His second-in-command, a younger Kethran named Dexmore, looked confused. "Commander, what is Project Chimera?" Veltai turned away from the display. his memories returning to a secret laboratory on a distant moon. 25 years ago, our scientists began an experiment. They wanted to create the perfect weapon against humans. The commander walked to another console and entered his personal access codes. Classified files appeared on the screen, showing laboratory footage of human children in glass tubes. We took human genetic material and combined it with our own technology, Veltai continued. We created hybrids, part human, part machine, part Kethrin. They were designed to look human, to think like humans, but to serve us without question. The Aoite files showed dozens of children floating in green liquid, their bodies connected to cables and wires. Most of the tubes were dark, their occupants dead from the experiments. Only 7 survived the process, Veltai said. We gave them false memories and sent them to infiltrate human settlements. They were programmed to gather information, then destroy their targets from within. Dexmore studied the images with growing understanding. And one of them is on the surface? Subject 7, Veltai confirmed. His designation was Teho. He was considered a failure because he retained too much human emotion. We thought he had died with the others when the laboratory was destroyed. The commander pulled up more files, showing reports from the hybrid weapons missions. 6 settlements had been wiped out by the infiltrators before contact was lost. But if he's still alive and protecting humans, Dexmore began. Then his programming has been completely broken, Veltai finished. This is both an opportunity and a disaster. If we can recapture him, we can learn why the conditioning failed and create better weapons. If we cannot, he didn't need to finish the thought. A hybrid with full access to his abilities and knowledge of Kethrin technology could be extremely dangerous. Prepare a retrieval team, Veltai ordered, and bring the neural control device from the laboratory archives. In Sanctuary Valley, 3 days had passed since the attack. The burned wreckage of the alien ships had been cleared away, but the fear remained. People looked at Teho differently now, with nervous glances and hushed conversations. Boram sat in her small workshop surrounded by salvaged computers and alien technology she had collected over the years. She was 28 years old, quiet, and shy but brilliant with electronics. The village often asked her to repair their equipment or study new pieces of Kethrin technology they found. She had been working for 2 days straight, trying to analyze the energy readings from Teho's attack. Her instruments had recorded everything, and what she found made her stomach feel sick. The energy patterns matched perfectly with Kethrin weapon signatures, but they were far more advanced than anything she had seen before. More disturbing was what she found in the wreckage of the scout ships, fragments of data crystals that contained partial files. Her hands shook as she connected the crystals to her computer. Most of the data was corrupted, but she could read enough to understand what she was seeing. Laboratory records, genetic experiments, human subjects, and photographs of children in glass tubes, including one with pale skin and silver hair. No, she whispered to herself. This can't be right. She ran the facial recognition software she had built from salvaged programs. The computer compared the child in the photograph to current images of Teho. The match was perfect. Boram sat back in her chair, her mind racing. Teho wasn't just different, he was one of them. A Kethrin creation, a weapon designed to kill humans. She heard footsteps outside her workshop and quickly closed the files. Wubin appeared in her doorway carrying a damaged radio. Boram, can you fix this? He asked. The signal is getting weaker every day. Wubin was 31 years old and the village's best engineer. He had dark hair streaked with early gray, and hands permanently stained with oil and metal dust. He had always been kind to her, never making fun of her shyness. Of course, she said, trying to keep her voice normal. Just leave it on the table, but Wubin noticed her expression. Are you all right? You look upset. Boram wanted to tell him what she had discovered, but the words wouldn't come. How could she explain that their protector was actually their greatest enemy? I'm just tired, she lied. I haven't been sleeping well. Wubin nodded with understanding. None of us have. What Teho did was incredible, but also frightening. What do you think about him? Boram asked carefully. I think he saved our lives, Wubin replied. Whatever he is, wherever he came from, he chose to protect us. That has to count for something. After Wubin left, Boram stared at the hidden files on her computer. She knew she should tell someone, but who would believe her? And what would happen to Tejo if the truth came out? That evening, Tejo sat alone on the hill overlooking the valley. He had been avoiding the village since the attack, spending his time walking in the mountains. The way people looked at him now hurt more than he expected. Sunja found him there as the sun was setting. She was the only person who still treated him the same way she always had. She sat down beside him, on the grass, her kind face showing concern. The villagers are afraid, she said gently. I know, Tejo replied. Maybe they should be. Why do you say that? Tejo was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes I remember things, not clear memories, just feelings, images. I remember being in a dark place and there were others like me, but they're all gone now. Sunja listened patiently. She had always known there was something unusual about Tejo's past. I remember pain, he continued, and voices telling me what to do. But I can't remember who the voices belonged to or what they wanted me to do. Maybe it's better that you don't remember, Sunja said. You are who you choose to be now, not who you were before. But even as she spoke the words, she wondered if they were true. The power Tejo had shown was not natural. It came from somewhere, and that somewhere might come looking for him. The next morning, Kyung-ho called a village meeting. He was 39 years old, a former soldier who had survived the fall of Daegu. He was respected for his military experience, but he was also suspicious and quick to anger. We need to talk about what happened, he announced to the gathered villagers, about what Tejo really is. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people nodded in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable. He saved us, Yoonji said. She was the schoolteacher, a gentle woman in her 40s who had always been kind to Tejo. This time, Kyung-ho replied. But what about next time? Did you see the power he used? That wasn't human. That was alien technology. So what if it was? Hee-jin interrupted. He's been living with us for 12 years. If he wanted to hurt us, he would have done it already. Maybe he was waiting for orders, Kyung-ho said darkly. Maybe he's been watching us, learning our weaknesses. The argument grew louder. Some villagers supported Kyung-ho's suspicions while others defended Tejo. The community that had survived together for years was beginning to split apart. Boram sat in the back of the meeting, the terrible knowledge burning inside her. She wanted to speak, to tell them the truth she had discovered, but fear held her tongue. If she was right about what Tejo was, revealing it could destroy him. But if she was wrong about his intentions, staying silent could destroy them all. As the argument continued, none of them noticed the small Kethrin probe hovering silently in the hills above the valley, recording everything and transmitting the data back to the mothership. Commander Veltai now knew exactly where to find his lost weapon. The nightmares came every night now. Tejo would wake up screaming, his sheets soaked with sweat, his eyes glowing in the darkness. The dreams were getting clearer, more real. He saw laboratories filled with green light. He heard voices speaking, in the clicking language of the Kethrins. He felt pain shooting through his body as machines worked on him, but worst of all, he saw other faces. Human faces filled with terror as he destroyed their homes. Tejo sat on the edge of his bed, holding his head in his hands. The memories were coming back piece by piece, and each one made him feel sick. He remembered a village by a river, families running, children crying, and himself, his eyes glowing with alien light, killing them all. What am I? He whispered to the empty room. A soft knock came at his door. Tejo, are you all right? It was Sunja's voice. He wiped his eyes and opened the door. The village healer stood there with a cup of tea, her face kind but worried. Bad dreams again? She asked. Tejo nodded and led her into his small house. Sunja set the tea on his table and sat down across from him. Do you want to talk about them? I remember things, Taeho said quietly. Terrible things. I think I've killed people before. Sunja reached across the table and took his hand. Those were dreams, not memories. But what if they weren't? Taeho looked at her with desperate eyes. What if I'm not who we think I am? Before Sunja could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the village. Both of them ran outside to see what was happening. Yejin was running through the streets, shouting orders. Everyone to positions! Large Kethran force approaching from the north. The villagers moved quickly to their defensive positions, but this time was different. Instead of 3 small scout ships, a massive Kethran transport was descending from the clouds. It was 10 times larger than anything they had seen before. Dongsu climbed onto the watchtower and raised his binoculars. 50 soldiers at least, he called down, and they have heavy weapons. The transport landed in the field outside the village. Its doors opened with a loud hiss, and Kethran soldiers marched out in perfect formation. They wore heavier armor than the scouts, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. At the front of the group walked Commander Veltai. He was taller than the other aliens, his scarred skin marking him as a veteran warrior. In his hands he carried a strange device that looked like a metal crown with wires and crystals. Humans of this settlement. Veltai's voice boomed across the valley. We have come for what belongs to us. Send out the hybrid, and the rest of you will be allowed to live. Taeho felt his blood turn cold. Hybrid. The word hit him like a physical blow. What is he talking about? Hyejin asked, but she was looking directly at Taeho. I don't know. Taeho lied. But even as he said it, more memories were flooding back. Laboratory tables. Alien scientists. The word hybrid spoken over and over. Kyung-ho stepped forward, his rifle in his hands. We don't negotiate with aliens, he shouted back. Veltai tilted his head with what might have been amusement. Very well. Subject 7. Activate protocol. Alpha. The commander raised the strange device high above his head. It began to glow with blue light, and suddenly, Taeho felt something terrible happening inside his mind. Pain shot through his skull like lightning. His vision blurred, and he could hear voices speaking in his head. They were the same voices from his nightmares, giving him orders in the Kethran language. Kill the humans. Complete your mission. Obey your programming. Taeho fell to his knees, clutching his head. The villagers around him backed away in fear as his eyes began to glow brighter than ever before. No, he gasped. I won't do it. But the voices were getting louder, and his body was no longer obeying his commands. He stood up slowly, his movements mechanical and strange. When he looked at the villagers, they were no longer friends and family. They were targets, enemies to be eliminated. Sunja stepped toward him. Taeho, fight it. Remember who you are. But Taeho raised his hand, energy crackling around his fingers. Stand back, human, you will be processed. The words came out of his mouth, but they felt wrong. This wasn't his voice. This wasn't his choice. Yejin raised her rifle, but her hands were shaking. Taeho, please don't do this. Subject 7. Eliminate all witnesses. Veltai commanded from his position outside the village. Taeho's hand moved toward Hyejin, energy building to deadly levels. But then a small voice called out from behind him. Taeho, don't hurt my friends. Minho, the 12-year-old boy who had spotted the first Kethran scouts, ran toward him despite the danger. His young face showed no fear, only trust and love. You're not a bad person, Minho said, grabbing Taeho's arm. You saved us before, you're our protector. The innocent touch of the child's hand sent a shock through Taeho's system. For a moment, the alien voices grew quieter. Yoonji, the school teacher, stepped forward next. Minho is right. You taught me how to read the old books. You helped me learn about the world before the war. You fixed my water pump when everyone else said it was broken, Wubin added, also moving closer despite the danger. More villagers began to speak up, sharing memories of times when Taeho had helped them, protected them, shown them kindness. You stayed up 3 nights when I was sick, Sunja said softly. You carried me to the medical shelter when I couldn't walk. The alien programming is trying to make you forget, J1, the spiritual leader, said calmly. But love is stronger than programming. Choice is stronger than conditioning. The voices in Taiho's head grew weaker as each person spoke. The blue light from Veltai's device flickered and sparked. Impossible, the Kethran commander snarled. No hybrid has ever resisted full activation. But Taiho was remembering now. Not the false memories the aliens had given him, but the real ones he had made in this village. Teaching Minho how to fish, helping Yunji with her lessons, working alongside Wu Bin to repair the village generator. These people had never asked him where he came from or what he was. They had simply accepted him as family. I know what I am now, Taiho said, his voice becoming his own again. I'm a weapon that was built to kill, but I choose to protect instead. He turned toward Veltai, his eyes blazing with white light that was brighter than ever before. But this time, the light came from his own will, not alien programming. You made one mistake, Taiho called out to the Kethran commander. You gave me human emotions, and now I'm going to use them against you. Taiho raised both hands toward the neural control device. White energy shot from his fingers, striking the alien technology and shattering it into pieces. The explosion knocked Veltai backward and sent shockwaves through the Kethran formation. All units open fire, Veltai commanded as he struggled to his feet. 50 Kethran soldiers raised their weapons and fired at once. Energy beams filled the air like deadly lightning. But Taiho was no longer the confused young man who had hidden his abilities. He was fully awake now, with all his hybrid powers under his own control. He moved faster than human eyes could follow, dodging between the energy blasts. His own attack struck back with precise accuracy, destroying alien weapons and knocking soldiers unconscious rather than killing them. Retreat to the transport, Veltai ordered. Signal the main fleet. Tell them we need the full invasion force. As the Kethrans fell back to their ship, Veltai activated a communication device on his armor. Command ship, this is Veltai. The hybrid has gone completely rogue. He's protecting the humans and fighting us directly. We need to destroy this settlement. Immediately. Understood, came the reply. Main fleet is en route. Arrival time, 72 hours. The transport lifted off, leaving Taiho standing in the village square. The villagers gathered around him, no longer afraid but not entirely comfortable, either. So it's true, Kyung-ho said. You really are one of them. Part of me is, Taiho admitted. But the part that matters, the part that chooses, is human. And I choose to stand with you. Dongsu stepped forward, his old face grave. They're coming back with their whole fleet, aren't they? Taiho nodded. In 3 days, and this time they won't try to capture me. They'll try to destroy everything. Then we need to prepare, Heejin said, checking her weapon. If you're with us, then we have a chance. We have more than a chance, Taiho said, looking around at the faces of the people who had chosen to trust him. We have something they'll never understand. We have family. In the distance, the Kethran transport disappeared into the clouds, carrying news of humanity's last stand back to the waiting fleet. The final battle was coming, but for the first time since the war began, the humans would have a weapon of their own. A weapon that had chosen love over programming and protection over destruction. The sun was barely up when Taiho called the village together. 3 days seemed like no time at all to prepare for the largest Kethran fleet ever assembled. But he had a plan, and it started with telling them the complete truth. I need to explain everything, Taiho said to the crowd gathered in the town square. About what I am and what I know about our enemies. Dongsu nodded encouragingly. We're listening. The Kethrans created me in a laboratory 25 years ago, Taiho began. They mixed human DNA with their technology to make hybrid weapons. 7 of us survived the process. Some villagers gasped, but most stayed quiet and listened. We were programmed to infiltrate human settlements, learn their weaknesses, and then destroy them from within. The other 6 hybrids completed their mission successfully before the Kethrans lost contact with us. Boram stepped forward from the crowd. I found evidence of this in the wreckage, she said quietly. Computer files showing the experiments. I was afraid to tell anyone. You were right to be careful, Tejo said. But now you don't need to be afraid anymore. I remember everything now. I remember destroying 6 human settlements before my programming broke down. The crowd stirred uneasily, but Kyung-ho raised his hand for silence. How do we know your programming won't activate again? He asked directly. Because I destroyed the control device, Tejo replied. And because I understand now that my emotions make me stronger, not weaker. The Catherines thought human feelings were a flaw in their design. They were wrong. Hee-jin stepped closer. What exactly can you do? We need to know everything if we're going to survive this. Tejo looked around at the faces watching him. These people deserved to know what they were fighting alongside. I'm physically stronger and faster than any human. I can see in complete darkness. I can sense electronic devices and energy fields. Most importantly, I can generate and control energy in ways that can destroy Catherine technology. But there's more, he continued. I have all the technical knowledge they programmed into me. I know how their ships work, how their weapons function, and how their defenses operate. I know their military tactics and their command structure. Woo-bin's eyes lit up with understanding. You can help us turn their own technology against them. Exactly, Tejo said. But we'll need to work fast. When that fleet arrives, they won't just have soldiers. They'll have heavy cruisers with enough firepower to level this entire valley from orbit. Then we need to make sure they have to come down and fight us on the ground, Hyejin said. How do we do that? Asked Yoonji. Tejo smiled grimly. We give them something they want more than our destruction. We give them me. The plan Tejo outlined was dangerous and complex. The village would be transformed into a fortress using salvaged Kithran technology and human ingenuity. But more than that, it would become a trap designed to bring the alien fleet within range of their new defenses. The first step was upgrading their weapons. Tejo led Woo-bin and Bo-ram to a hidden cave where he had stored pieces of alien technology over the years. He had been collecting them unconsciously, his programming telling him they might be useful someday. These are power cells from their scout ships, Tejo explained, showing them cylindrical devices that hummed with energy. We can use them to upgrade your weapons and build new ones. Woo-bin picked up one of the power cells, feeling its weight. How do we connect them to human technology? I can modify the connections, Tejo said. My hands can work directly with their electronic systems, but I'll need help building the housings and control mechanisms. For the next 2 days, the village became a weapons factory. Every person who could hold a tool was put to work. They took apart farming equipment, car engines, and old computers, using the parts to build new devices powered by alien technology. Soonja organized the medical supplies and set up treatment areas for the wounded they expected. Yunseo, despite her gentle nature, learned to load ammunition and prepare explosive charges. Jaewon worked with the older villagers and children, teaching them how to operate the communication systems Tai-ho was building. If the battle went badly, someone would need to warn other human settlements about the massive Kethran fleet. Min-ho appointed himself as Tai-ho's assistant, following him everywhere and helping carry tools. The boy showed no fear, only excitement at helping to defend his home. Are you scared? Min-ho asked while Tae-ho worked on an energy shield generator. Terrified, Tae-ho admitted, but not of dying. I'm scared of failing to protect all of you. You won't fail, Min-ho said with the absolute confidence only children possess. You're the strongest person I know. By the end of the second day, the village looked completely different. Energy barriers flickered around the perimeter, powered by Kethran technology, but controlled by human determination. Modified weapons were mounted on rooftops and hidden in trenches. Most impressive was the main defense grid Tae-ho had built in the center of town. It looked like a metal tree with branches reaching toward the sky, each branch topped with an energy projector capable of shooting down aircraft. Will it work? Dong-soo asked, looking at their transformed home. Against their scouts and fighters, yes, Tae-ho said. Against their heavy cruisers. We'll find out. That evening, Bo-ram made an important discovery while analyzing Kethran: communication frequencies. She burst into the meeting hall where the leaders were planning final defenses. I've been monitoring their transmissions, she said breathlessly. The fleet isn't just coming to destroy us. They're coming to capture Taeho alive, if possible. Why? Hyejin asked. Because he's the only hybrid who broke his programming, Boram explained. They want to study him, to understand how it happened so they can prevent it in future weapons. Taeho felt a chill run down his spine. That changes everything. If they want me alive, they'll be more careful about using heavy weapons near the village. Which gives us a better chance, Kyung-ho said with satisfaction. They'll have to come down and fight us face to face. But it also means they'll throw everything they have at us once they realize they can't take me alive, Taeho warned. The third day dawned clear and cold. Lookouts reported seeing shapes moving in the high clouds, the advanced scouts of the Kethran fleet. Everyone took their positions and waited. Taeho stood on the watchtower next to Dongsu, looking out at the mountains where he had played as a child, where he had learned what it meant to be human. Any regrets? The old village leader asked. Only one, Taeho replied. I wish I had more time to be just a normal person in this place. You've had 12 years, Dongsu said gently. That's more than many people get. And you've used that time to become someone worth fighting for. In the distance, the clouds began to darken as massive shapes moved within them. The Kethran fleet was taking position for the final assault. Yunseo activated the village-wide communication system. Everyone remember what we're fighting for, her voice echoed from speakers throughout the valley. We're not just defending buildings or territory. We're defending the idea that family is chosen, not born. That love is stronger than programming. That humans never give up. Taeho checked his weapons one last time and looked around at the people preparing to fight alongside him. Wu Bin was calibrating the main defense grid. Boram was monitoring enemy communications. Soonja was ready with medical supplies. Even gentle Yunji had taken up a rifle to protect her students. These people had taken in a lost child with no memory and no past. They had given him a name, a purpose, and most importantly, a family. Now it was time to show the universe what humans would do to protect their own. All units report ready, Hyejin announced over the radio. Energy shields, at maximum power, Wu Bin confirmed. Weapon systems online, Boram added. Taeho activated his own enhanced abilities, feeling the familiar tingle of energy flowing through his body. But this time, instead of the cold alien programming, he felt something warm and powerful. He felt love for these people who had saved him from becoming a monster. He felt determination to protect the only home he had ever known. He felt the strength that came from choosing your own destiny. Let them come, he said quietly. Above them, the clouds parted, and the Kethran fleet descended like a dark storm toward the last human village on Earth. The Kethran fleet filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects. 30 massive ships hung in the air above Sanctuary Valley, their weapons pointed downward like the fangs of hungry beasts. Commander Veltai's voice boomed from speakers on the lead cruiser. Humans, you have one final chance. Surrender the hybrid weapon and your deaths will be quick. Dongsu activated the village's communication system and spoke into the microphone. His old voice carried clearly across the valley. We are humans. We don't surrender our family. Then you will all die, Veltai replied. The first wave of Kethran, fighters screamed down from the fleet like falling stars. Their energy weapons lit up the morning sky as they dove toward the village defenses. All units, this is it, Hyejin announced over the radio. Fire at will. The energy projectors Taeho had built came to life, sending beams of white light up toward the attacking fighters. The first 2 alien ships exploded in balls of fire and metal. The others scattered, surprised by the strength of the human defenses. Direct hit on lead fighter, Boram reported from her control station. Their shields are weaker than expected. That's because they're not expecting us to use their own technology against them, Taeho said, manning the main defense grid. His hands moved over the controls faster than human eyes could follow, tracking multiple targets at once. More fighters came down in waves, but the village was ready. Energy barriers absorbed their attacks while the modified weapons struck back with deadly accuracy. Within minutes, half the Kethran fighter squadron was destroyed or retreating. On the command ship above, Veltai watched his screens with growing anger. Impossible. How are primitive humans destroying our fighters? The hybrid is helping them, his tactical officer reported. He's using our own technology better than we are. Then we stop playing games, Veltai snarled. Deploy the assault troops. I want that hybrid captured alive, but kill everything else. Large transport ships dropped from the main fleet, carrying hundreds of Kethran soldiers. They landed outside the village's energy barriers and began their attack on foot. Battle became fierce and personal. Kethran soldiers with their advanced armor and energy weapons faced humans with modified farming tools and desperate courage. But the humans had advantages the aliens hadn't expected. They knew every building, every street, every hiding place in their village. They fought not just for survival, but for their homes and families. And they had Tai-Ho. He moved through the battle like a force of nature, his white energy striking down aliens while protecting villagers. But even with his power, the numbers were overwhelming. We're being pushed back, Kyung-Ho reported over the radio. He was leading the defense of the eastern barrier, but alien soldiers were breaking through. I'm coming, Tai-Ho replied. But before he could move, explosions rocked the village center. Kethran heavy troops had broken through the main gate. These soldiers wore thicker armor and carried weapons that could punch through the energy barriers. Sunja's medical station took a direct hit, and she cried out as burning debris fell around her. Tai-Ho's vision went red with rage. These people had saved him, raised him, loved him. No one would hurt them while he still lived. He rose into the air, energy crackling around his entire body. White light poured from his hands and eyes as he unleashed power he had never used before. Every Kethran soldier in the village center was thrown back by the shockwave, but the effort cost him. Blood ran from his nose and his legs shook when he landed. He had pushed his hybrid abilities to their limit. Tai-Ho! Minho ran to his side, the boy's face streaked with dirt and tears. Sunja is hurt bad. Yunseo is trying to help her, but... Tai-Ho looked across the battle and saw that they were losing. More Kethran troops were landing every minute. The village's defenses were failing. His people were dying. There was only one way to end this. Bo-Ram, he called over the radio. Can you override the communication systems on their command ship? Maybe, if I had a direct connection to their network, she replied from her damaged control station. Then that's what we're going to do. Tai-Ho stood up, his eyes blazing with determination. I'm going up there. That's suicide, Hyejin protested. They have 30 ships up there. They want me alive, Tai-Ho replied. That gives me an advantage. And I know something about their command ship that they've forgotten. He explained his plan quickly. It was dangerous beyond belief, but it was their only chance. If this doesn't work, he said to the gathered defenders, then you need to evacuate the children and elderly to the mountain caves. Bo-Ram has prepared emergency broadcasts to warn other human settlements. It will work, Dongsu said firmly. Because you're not just fighting for us anymore. You're fighting for every human left on Earth. Tai-Ho flew upward toward the Kethran fleet, energy streaming behind him like the tail of a comet. Fighter ships moved to intercept him, but he was too fast and too skilled. He dodged their attacks and struck back with precise bursts of power. The command ship's weapons turned toward him as he approached, but they couldn't fire directly without risking damage to their own fighters. Tai-Ho slammed into the hull of the massive vessel and began tearing through the metal with his bare hands. Hull breach on deck 7, came the reports inside the ship. The hybrid is inside. Veltai activated the ship's internal defenses, but Tai-Ho knew exactly where to go. His programming had included complete schematics of Kethran vessels. He fought his way through corridors filled with soldiers, heading for the central computer core. Stop him, Veltai commanded. All units converge on the computer center, but Tai-Ho was already there. He placed his hands on the main computer and felt his consciousness merge with the ship's systems. This was the part of his hybrid nature he had never fully used, his ability to interface directly with Kethran technology. Through the ship's communication array, he broadcast a message across all frequencies, reaching every Kethran vessel and every human settlement still hiding on Earth. This is Tai-Ho, also known as Subject 7 of Project Chimera. I am broadcasting the locations of all hidden human settlements to every Kethrin ship in the fleet. In Sanctuary Valley, the villagers heard the transmission and felt their hearts break. Had their protector betrayed them after all? But Tejo wasn't finished. However, he continued, I am also uploading a virus into every Kethrin computer system simultaneously. This virus will disable your weapons, your engines, and your life support systems. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your ships before they become metal coffins. The virus, created from Tejo's own hybrid programming, spread through the Kethrin network like wildfire. Ships began losing power and falling from the sky. Alien soldiers ran for escape pods as their vessels became uninhabitable. Impossible. Feltai gasped as his own command ship began to shake apart around him. The hybrid was never programmed with viral creation abilities. You're right, Tejo said, appearing in the doorway of the command center. But I learned it from my human family. They taught me that sometimes you have to be creative to protect the people you love. As Kethrin ships crashed all around the valley, the remaining alien soldiers on the ground found their weapons and armor suddenly powerless. The villagers, led by Heejin and Kyung-ho, quickly surrounded and captured them. The battle was over. Humanity had won. Taiho flew down from the crashing command ship to find the village in celebration. Soonja was alive, her injuries serious but not fatal, thanks to Yunseo's quick treatment. The defensive barriers had held, and most of the buildings were intact, but more importantly, Boram's emergency broadcasts were receiving responses. Human settlements all across Earth were reporting in, inspired by Sanctuary Valley's impossible victory. The resistance is organizing, she announced excitedly. Settlements from every continent are joining together, and they're all asking for our help in building defenses like ours. The war isn't over, Dongsu said, but for the first time in 30 years we have real hope. Over the following months, Taiho traveled from settlement to settlement, sharing his knowledge of Kethrin, technology and helping humans build new defenses, but he always returned to Sanctuary Valley, to the family that had chosen to love him despite what he was. Min-ho, now 13 and full of confidence, often asked to help with the technical work. Yoon-ji had started a school for children from other settlements, teaching them about the world that was and the world that could be again. Woobin and Boram worked together to reverse engineer captured Kethrin technology, creating new tools for farming, medicine, and communication. Soonja healed both bodies and spirits, helping refugees from destroyed settlements find new homes. One evening as the sun set over the valley, Taiho sat with Dongsu on the old watchtower. The village below was larger now, filled with people from other settlements who had come to learn and help rebuild. Do you ever regret it? Dongsu asked. Choosing to be human instead of following your original programming? Taiho looked down at the children playing in the streets, at the adults working together to build something better, at the gardens growing where battlefields had been. Never, he said. The Kethrins created me to be a weapon, but you taught me to be something much more powerful. You taught me to be family.